cartridge-contained black powder, right now on Pirate Firearms and Reloading. Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about one of my favorite things, black powder again, but this time in cartridge contained format. So I've briefly talked about muzzle loaders and that, and I do thoroughly enjoy shooting my muzzle loader, but something else I really enjoy is shooting metallic cartridge black powder. So today I'm just going to quickly go over what I do for 357 Magnum. This pretty much applies to any straight wall case. So as it happens, 357 was never a black powder cartridge, but 38 Special was. Yeah, I know the case is a little bit longer, the pressures are different, but in the days where they were loaded in black powder, you had a balloon head case. Now, we've gone away from balloon head cases for various reasons, nitrocellulose, more pressure, things like that, but it means that the 357 Magnum case has a very similar capacity to what a balloon head 38 Special would have had. So we can kind of use similar load data. The other important thing I'll cover right here, and I'll cover when I'm actually doing it too on the press, is that with black powder you can't have any air gap in the case. With modern powders you can have a little bit of wiggle room in there, fill it to, sometimes as low as 50% capacity and you'll still be alright. Black powder, you can't do that. You must have it either compressed or really, really tightly stacked within the case or in your barrel in a muzzle loader. The way we get around that is actually compressing the powder, not as scary as it sounds, and that just ensures that we get a good tight powder stack, and we also do that in a separate stage with a straight wall so we don't deform the bullet by using the bullet as that compression tool. We're talking lead projectiles, and that brings us to my second point. You can't just use a normal jacketed projectile you'd buy off the shelf. Don't get me wrong, there are commercial availabilities for black powder things. Hornady does the cowboy bullets. There's a few others out there, or you can mold your own. So what I've got here is a projectile I have molded myself. So this is 158 grains, and it's a semi-wad cutter from the shape. But the most critical thing here, oh, by the way, this is from a Lee mold, it has grooves in it, and these are lube grooves. There's technically a bit of a groove here in the base because this bullet is capable of having a gas check on it. Then you've got two lube grooves, and you've actually got a crimp groove here in the top. I don't crimp black powder cartridge, so I'm going to use that as a lube groove as well. It's a little bit smaller, but it still works. If you do want to use that crimp groove, you don't put lube in it because any lube exposed to air outside of the case tends to go a bit crusty and nasty. By the time you come around to shoot it, it doesn't really help you when you're coming to chamber things. Some of the guys who shoot breech loaders and your bigger calibers, 4570, 4590, things like that, don't even resize their cases. Now, I use these for a couple of different rifles. They can also fit in a pistol, of course, 357. And one of those happens to be a lever gun. So I don't want to find out halfway through a match that I'm jamming up because my cases aren't sized correctly. So I just size by default, but I do not crimp. That's up to you and your personal method, but that's what's worked for me in the past. So now you've got to lubricate that bullet. Now, as a side note, I have powder coated these after I cast them. I do that for two reasons. You're not exposing yourself to lead, right? So basically sealing it in just like a copper jacket would. The other thing is it acts as a little bit of a lubricant and a protector to the barrel, and it doesn't leave leading in your barrel, which can be a problem when you shoot raw lead projectiles. So when I do a small batch, I use this little pan here. As you can see, I've done it before by the holes in it. And what I simply do, if you've already done this, you push the bullets down in the hole. I added a bit of extra lube, so I have a little workshop oven. I'm not going to bore you with how one of those works. A little benchtop oven. I'm going to set this to about 95 degrees Celsius. Just enough to soften the lube up, turn it to a liquid without damaging the ingredients in the lube. And then let it cool. Once it's actually cooled, you can see here that, without making a mess, that cake of lube is loose in the pan. You turn it upside down, you push the bullets out through the back. So I'm going to go and fire that up and get things started in that realm. I can do that while I'm doing everything else. I'm going to use the Charge Master for weighing, but I am going to use the Lee dippers. If you've never seen these guys before, they come with a lot of your Lee reloading kits. You can buy a whole kit of these yourself as well, and they are black powder safe. I'm not running black powder through my nice Charge Master, but I'm using it as a scale. The other thing I do between the powder and the bullet, because there is a lubricant involved, I do a little card wad. So I cut these out of cereal boxes. I have a laser engraver cutter, so instead of punching them, I just lay a whole sheet out. It cuts them all out for me nice and simply, and the perfect size. So we're going to use those. I have a full set of dies, and then I have a custom-made die as well. Powder compression dies are available for calibers. I strongly suggest you use them because you will deform a bullet if you try and use that for compression. Right, so I'm going to take my 5 cases here, and we're just going to run them through the sizing die. I did actually de-prime them a little while ago. The beauty about pistol calibers is carbide dies, which means I don't have to sit around and lubricate them all up. So I've covered the Lee bench prime in another video, so all we're going to do is go ahead and prime these just like we normally would. There's no real complication to doing this. I think it's probably just a little bit nerve-wracking the first time you do it for most people. Fortunately, the club, my local club that I shoot at, we have quite a contingency of black powder shooters, so there's always plenty of advice on tap should I need it. The next stage is I am going to weigh out the charges of black powder. Now, the best way I've found to do this is actually to pour it into a container like this and then scoop it from there. So if you are going to do this, I'll give you a little tip to avoid static electricity. Black powder comes in a recycling number 2 container. So as long as you put it in a recycling number 2 container, you should be good. I wouldn't go shaking it around or long-term storing it in there, but for just basic stuff, it should be fine. Right, and today I'm aiming for 21.6 grains of Swiss 3F. 3F being slightly finer and slightly faster burning is better for pistol calibers. And we're just gonna scoop up there. And with a bit of practice, you can get this pretty close the first time. Just like that, 21.6 grains. So now the next step of the process is the powder through expanding die. And I'm going to stick just a funnel in the top. This acts like a little bit of a drop tube as well, helping the powder fall nicely into the case. So I've just got it putting a little bit of a flare on the case neck because this is a flat base projectile, and it's also not jacketed. So run that up in the ram. I've got 21.6 grains. Drop that in there like that. Pull it back down. And we now have black powder in the case. So I just put the printed side up in there. Because the bullets will have lube on the base to a little certain extent, that glossy side will mean that when the cartridge is fired, that the card wad is less likely to stick to the bullet and therefore affect it during its flight. Okay, so the next step in the process while the bullet lube cools is to compress the powder. So what you're going to need is a powder compression die. So this one happens to be 3D printed. I struggled to find one. In New Zealand, I could have imported one. I thought, let's just give this a go. Turns out it's actually worked really well. So what it has inside, if you can see in there, is an adjustable mandrel. So that mandrel on the inside is obviously the inside case diameter. So it's probably, I think from memory, I made it about 350, somewhere around there. And that's what's actually going to force on top of the card wad and force the powder down. Now, the outside of the die, just like any other die, is basically the correct diameter for the outside of the case, so we don't get any bulges or anything weird like that. And it allows it to self-center. I've got it pre-set up in the Lee quick change system, the breech lock system. So we're going to go ahead and dump that guy in the press and lock it in place. So there's multiple theories on how much or how little compression you actually need. So the idea being is I'm going to compress that powder stack down to the point where the bullet can basically just sit on top of that card wad, and the only force applied during the seating process will be from the case neck or case wall tension against the bullet. I don't want to be using the bullet to compress the charge. On a on a powder coated bullet, lead bullet, you will deform the bullet. If you deform the bullet, it's not going to perform correctly. So we use a powder compression die. So to give you an example, this one here with the card wad in it is sitting just on top of the powder as it sits. Now, bearing in mind you saw the rough size of that 158 grain projectile, I want to be able to seat it down to something like that with no compression. Now this one, you'll note the crimp groove is exposed. This is just a dummy round. These ones are going to be seated just like any other die in the reloading process. Fire it in the press. I just let it come down, and I don't apply a rapid force to the press. I just very, very gently come up until it bottoms out. And now you'll note that wad is way down inside the neck. Sorry, I chose the worst color possible. We'll do another one. Right, you should be able to see that one a bit better. There you go. So it's compressed it down quite a bit now, so the bullet can go in there freely with purely the wall tension of the case. So we're going to do this for the remainder. So plenty of companies online, like Buffalo Arms and Track of the Wolf, do offer powder compression dies in your various calibers. Right, so that's all 5 cases now with the powder compressed correctly. Now, this is still cooling off. When it has cooled off enough, you'll notice that the lube actually shrinks a little bit inside the pan, and you'll be able to sort of, and the whole lube biscuit, if you like, will move around the place. We're not quite there yet, so I'm going to leave this another couple of minutes off camera, and we'll pop them out, seat them, and we'll be ready to go to the range and fire them. Okay folks, so we've allowed this to cool, probably took a grand total of about 10 minutes. Now you can see the lube biscuit, as I call it, has fallen out. And there's very little lube on the base of the projectiles. That's good. So now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take my muzzle loading short starter. I've got a couple of spare ones of these, and we're just going to push on the back of the bullet just a little bit. You can take pliers and grab the bullet, but I prefer to do it this way. There's no chance of deforming the bullet. And if we turn that guy around, now we have bullets where if it's going to focus for me, the lube grooves are now full. That top groove didn't fill perfectly, but that's okay. I'm not particularly worried. So I'm just going to pull them out. It is a little bit messy. You want a bit of shop towel or something lying around. And we're just going to pull these guys out. Right, so I've now put my bullet seating die into the press. So I'm going to take one of my cases, which is ready to go. Now, these will almost push themselves, or if I can get the angle right, you can almost just push and get these started like that. And you'll run them in, and it should feel nice and smooth to put the projectile in the case. Now you'll notice there's a bit of lube around that top bit of the projectile. Take something and just wipe that off. It does have a habit of going nasty and crusty if you don't shoot them fairly quickly. If I have my timeline correct, you're probably seeing me shoot these. There is the 1 MOA all day challenge at the moment from Bloke on the Range and Polnar Tactical, I think. So I'm going to give that a go. I figured, why not just do it in black powder, do something a little bit different. Also very quickly discovered that not many of my firearms are under 10 pounds. So we're going to do it this way. A little bit of quirkiness, do it with some black powder, you know, make it an actual challenge. We've all got that rifle we know we can put on a bipod and shoot 10 MOA without a problem, but to do it with black powder and an old breech loader with aperture sights, that will be more of a challenge and probably way more entertaining to you guys. So until next time, happy shooting. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss out on anything. And if you found this video helpful, please share it with your friends. If you have any questions, hit me up in the comments below. Catch you next time.